Hi guys, so those lovely people over at Army Painter recently sent me this Dungeons and Dragons core set, and basically it's a box of goodies to get you started on building lots of terrain for your D&D or any kind of other tabletop gaming. As you can see, it comes with a hot wire cutter, paints and glues, which is nice and handy, and a good old palette there, brushes, cutter, bits and pieces, leaves and stuff, and some gravel, and more paints, which is awesome because I do like the paints, as well as a primer that's suitable for foam, which is great because any other kind of primer basically eats it. And yeah, quite a lot of foam board, which is pretty cool, and a ruler. And as we all know, I can never find my ruler, so that's quite handy too. So I'm going to start off by getting two bits together, and I'm going to glue them onto the back of this board. Just because I've got quite a lot of these sheets that I've had for months and months and months, never known what to do with them, and now I'm going to start making lots of little dioramas and sets to basically use in the D&D games that I'm going to be playing. So yeah, I am back into D&D now, which is great. I've played 2 games so far, which has been pretty awesome. As anyone might have known, I've been sort of saying that I've not played D&D for about 35 years. So I last sort of played when I just left, was at school, then just left school, and then started playing. So yeah, so it's great to get back into playing the game, which is obviously why I'm now painting lots of figures for D&D, and I'm now going to be making these sort of like sets, dioramas, basically bits and pieces to go along with it. I'm going to start by marking out 1-inch squares, as basically this is the size sort of tile that each figure sort of takes up. And obviously when you come to moving the figures, it just makes it easier to sort of see how far you can move, basically. So this bottom bit I'm using, I'm actually going to make this into like the dungeon floor sort of tiles. So yeah, it's just a case of getting your pencil and basically like scoring into the foam. Obviously I'm only doing it lightly at the moment. I will do it a bit firmer in a second once I've got everything sort of sorted and arranged. And basically there, the great stuff with this foam is that you can obviously indent it quite easily. I haven't really used foam much before, so it is good to obviously get some practice in. And yeah, this is my first piece, or proper piece, of making something for D&D, which is awesome. Here's one of those figures I 3D printed on my Anycubic Photon Mono, and this little guy came from the Artisan Guild. I'll leave links in the description, guys. Basically, everything I use will be in the description, so you can get hold of it yourself. And yeah, I've seen lots of people do this sort of technique, get the old silver foil and crinkling it up and rubbing that on the floor to obviously make the indentations and make it look a bit rougher. And as you can see, I've stuck some sort of nails and bits and pieces in there, just so every now and then you'll get a real rough indentation. Again, it just makes it a lot more more natural looking, and is very irregular. Unfortunately, some of the bits do kind of poke out just because they are rather sharp, and pokey. So every now and then something does sort of drop out, but that's fine. Again, I'll just sort of rub over the top of those as well, and it really does give it a nice rough sort of stony, worn texture, which is pretty cool. Obviously, a lot of stuff I'm doing here, guys, isn't new, isn't mind-blowing. It's been done by other channels for the last, years and years and years, but obviously it's all new to me, as I've not made these kind of sort of terrain pieces, and obviously I've not really used foam board before. So yeah, obviously the only thing I don't really like, not exactly I don't like about this, but when you use PVA glue, you do have to wait a long time for it to obviously set, dry, harden, whatever you want to say. Whereas obviously the super glue works straight away. Then the problem here is using super glue on the foam board, it basically eats it. So yeah, it just dissolves, which is why obviously you have to use PVA glue. I'm going to look into other sort of glues, if there are any sort of fast setting ones, because I have seen Yoo-Hoo glue do a special one for foam board. So yeah, guys, if you've got any tips or tricks on what sort of glue to use on foam board that is sort of, faster setting than this PVA stuff, by all means let me know in the description, as I will be making lots more sort of terrain pieces, dioramas, basically sets, using this sort of material. As I say, obviously when you use the PVA glue, it does take quite a few hours. So I've got a rough idea of what I'm sort of building, but obviously a lot of it is just being made up as I go along. All I really know is this is going to be like the entrance into a dungeon or tomb. So I want some really big doors, and they're going to be like set into the side of a mountain. So it's going to look like the mountain's been sort of carved up by good old dwarfs, because they seem to be good at building things into the side of mountains. And yeah, some huge big doors. So these are small foam bits that I've got. These didn't come with the Army Painter one. These were just bought off Amazon. But I will be buying lots more bits and pieces like this. Or even I've got some sort of like foam packing. When you get like the old TV or bits and pieces. All the foam packing that comes in them, I am now going to be obviously keeping hold of. So I'm marking out where the door's going to go. I was going to kind of do the door separately, just so I can do a few bits and pieces on it. And then it's obviously using the roll that the silver foil came on. Basically, I took loads of the foil off, put that in a drawer, just so I can have the roll. Just because the rolls from the silver stuff is really, really thick. They're really strong and, yeah, pretty good, these rolls. So I just roughly drew the door on there, but as you can see, I wasn't quite in the centre. That's fine, so it's only a rough thing, but I am now obviously going to make sure everything is the right sort of length, height, and yeah, bit of measuring basically. And then obviously because I want to get a nice round sort of curve to the top of the door, I'm using the plate. Luckily the red pen does come off, although these are cheap plastic plates anyway. So yeah, that's roughly the door done, and then it was a case of just going around gluing everything. Obviously I did say earlier not to use the super glue because obviously it does dissolve. Because obviously the bits I'm doing now, it doesn't really matter. It does glue them together, but I say it does start dissolving bits as well. So yeah, if you want to keep it nice and clean, then obviously use the PVA. If you're impatient like I am sometimes, then yeah, chuck on some super glue, but expect it to eat into the foam board. But say this is all going to get covered later on anyway. Basically, these foam board pieces are just here to give me sort of rough sizes, shapes, something to work on for my next bit, really. Once I've got the rough shape on this, and yeah, I was pretty pleased with how this is looking. I just really wanted to go over and obviously take away a lot of these sort of, basically the corner edges. So using the hot wire cutter, I could just basically sort of go over and yeah, trim the edges. So it's the first time I've used a hot wire sort of cutter. And yeah, I mean this is a relatively sort of cheap sort of kind of one, but it does the job. And yeah, it's quite easy to do and sort of fun really. Because my hand's a bit shaky, very irregular sort of cuts, which is probably even better because obviously this is meant to be the side of obviously the mountain that's been sort of cut into for the entrance to be made. So yeah, you don't really want it obviously looking too neat and sort of symmetrical or whatever. Yeah, shaking the hand did seem to work quite well. And sometimes it was difficult getting the angle right to get bits off. So again, that just helps with the inconsistency of everything. And then good old polyfiller. I love this stuff. Obviously Americans, this is spackle. Well, I believe it's spackle. Yeah, I love this stuff. I just use this everywhere because obviously it's a great filler, but it's also great for sort of building terrain pieces, floor pieces, and obviously in this case, the side of a rocky mountain that has been cut up. So I left the door as a separate piece just to make it easier to obviously put the sort of definition into it, just because it's obviously easier to push down on it when it's on a flat sort of base. Same sort of things I've done with the tiles, basically measuring it up and then just basically cutting sort of grooves into it using the pen. Yeah, again, nice and simple, but very effective. So obviously I want the door to make it look like it's sort of made of wooden panels, so that's why I'm obviously scraping in the wooden panels, and then once that's done, then go into it again and just make it sort of grainy looking. No real sort of technique here. I am literally just sort of winging it, putting lines in all over the place just to make it look a bit sort of bit rougher. I think once it's painted, I think the overall effect does look pretty good. I probably could have put a bit more definition in, made some sort of gnarly looking bits, and yeah, basically have a look at sort of how trees sort of look when they're cut up, I guess. But I will do that in the next ones. I'm pleased with how it's looking so far, and to make it look a bit more creepier, I've 3D printed these gargoyles out again on the Anycubic 3D printer. And yeah, I just love these little chaps. I think they look pretty cool. So obviously I want to make them on like little sort of pedestal sort of bits. So I'm basically just going to raise up these areas to the side, just so they're obviously sitting higher than your adventurer, basically looking down on him. And yeah, really good. So with the door, again, 3D printer. I absolutely love my 3D printer. Just because you can print out, well, obviously kind of what you want really. So in this case, I printed out some hinges, and I printed out some, door knockers, because who doesn't like a good door knocker? So yeah, the door knockers are nice, huge, sort of lion-faced ones. And yeah, I think they look really good once they're in place. So the surround above the door, I had considered making out of the polystyrene sort of bricks that I've made. But then I thought, nah, let's 3D print that as well, because it'll be a lot smarter, a lot neater, and it'll look how it looks in my head. And as you can see, I've printed out a tree as well. I got the file from the tree from a company called Printable Scenery. Again, I'm going to leave their links in the description. Go check them out, as they do a ton of lovely looking sort of scenery bits and pieces. Well, that you can basically 3D print out. So that's printable scenery, and yeah, link in the description. And these awesome figures are from the Artisan Guild. Again, link in the description. So that's the main build pretty much done now. It is just a case of going around sort of neatening areas up, or in the case that you'll soon see, roughening areas up. Because I don't want the whole of this sort of main bit to be these squares. I'm going to put some grass down on it eventually. So again, for that I'm just going to make some sort of like rough hills, basically bits of land that are higher up than the tiles, just so when the grass goes on it, the grass is obviously a different level to the tiles. And it'll also tidy up and neaten up the sort of the edges of this board. So yeah, again, good old grout going around. Again, no real sort of pattern to this. I'm making some areas higher, some lower. It doesn't need to be too neat, because say this is going to be covered in sort of like the flocking, the fake grass and bits and pieces. So yeah, I just wanted different sort of height levels really. And yeah, again, just having fun with it basically. So this is the bit where I'm obviously going to go in and mess it up a little bit. Obviously some of these stones are too neat, too tidy. This structure or this cave sort of thing was meant to have been here for like hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of years. So again, just going through with my little sort of sharp tool and breaking away some of the polystyrene. Obviously, because it is nice and soft, this stuff, it does break away really easily. If anything, you have to be careful not to break up too much, because otherwise you'll have nothing left. But yeah, just for sort of breaking up bits of these stones, especially on the edges where they might be a bit more worn. Yeah, it really is quite a nice little sort of thing to do. As this is an area that will be full of monsters to obviously try and well, kill our travellers or adventurers, I'm putting some nice sort of claw marks in the ground here as well. Yeah, again, nice and easy, just sort of scrape into the foam board. If anything, I think a bit too much came off, so I should have really used a pen here, which obviously I'm using now, to do that first bit, because my tool is pretty cool, but it, rather than sort of like cutting into this stuff, it basically just rips it and tears it. So yeah, I should have done a pen just to got thinner lines, but that's fine. Again, this is some big old beastie of a monster. And yeah, obviously when I've broken up some of these tiles, underneath I'm now going to just put loads and loads of little stones just to fill in the area, as though this is obviously what it looked like underneath these the big slabs that are on top. Again, it's all these little finishing details I think help make these kind of things. If you play tabletop games, then you're going to have loads of these. That's right, dice. And these lovely things come in all kinds of shapes and sizes, from plastic ones to metal ones to gold ones and to huge ones. All the ones I use can be bought from Easy Roller Dice, link in the description. But don't you just hate it when this happens? Too many dice innocently go off the edge of the table and under the sofa. If this has happened to you, then you need my face on a dice tray. So whether you're rolling just the one die, or several dice, or if you play a game where you use tons of dice, then you need to be rolling them on my face. So check out Easy Roller Dice, where you can find this great dice tray, all these varieties of dice, and use my code MINI15 to get 15% off your order. And who knows, rolling your dice on my face might give you that lucky roll. Click on the link below when the video finishes. Now it's ready for painting. I'm going to go over it with this primer. Again, this was all included in this sort of set from Army Painter, which is pretty cool. Again, because if you try and sort of spray paint this with any kind of normal primer, it will basically eat in and dissolve all the foam board. So this primer is obviously a special one. So there's a couple of things I forgot to do before priming, and one of them, obviously, I want to put some skeleton bones, just sort of like placed around, more so the tree than anything. Again, just obviously because there will be a lot of adventurers that would have met their demise here, and I think, yeah, just adding these skeletons in there will make it look a bit more sort of creepy. And the other thing I wanted to do was on the tree, I wanted to make the roots sort of spread out a bit further. I say the print was awesome, I just wanted to add on some extra roots, and I'm doing this by using Milliput, as this is nice easy stuff to use, and obviously just mix up the two sort of compounds together, and then it turns into obviously like a plasticine, and you get a nice long time to work with this. It doesn't go hard sort of, well, for quite a while. Yeah, so you just sort of roll it out, make the kind of rough shape pattern you need. And I say the great thing with this is because it is nice and soft, it's easy to sort of blend and merge in with, well, whatever it is you've already got there. Obviously you can use green stuff as well, but the thing I find with green stuff is obviously it's very sticky and tacky, so you do have to obviously wet your tool, wet your fingers, basically wet whatever you're going to sort of touch it with, otherwise it does sort of stick. So the milliput is pretty cool because it doesn't sort of stick as much, but gives you the same sort of result, which is really nice. Now onto the actual painting, and again, so this set really does come with everything you need. So you've got plenty of paint to use for the sort of dungeony look, and I'm using the good old cheap makeup brush, basically because I want to do some sort of dry brushing. I just find that seems to get the best sort of effect when painting stones, basically. So yeah, the good old cheap brush, get loads on there, then rub it onto some cloth, so there's only a bit left on, and then yeah, sort of go over the whole thing. So again, this isn't obviously fully dried as in dry brushing. This is kind of like dry, a little bit wet. So it does sort of come onto the thing, but it doesn't come on as like a thick amount of paint. It really just mainly touches obviously the highlighted areas or the raised areas. So it just keeps all these sort of shadows at the bottom, which is pretty cool. And then I went over with a dry brush, and this time it is a dry brush with some white. Again, so this really does just sort of capture the really exposed areas, and just makes them look a little bit warm. So again, yeah, I think dry brushing really does give a great effect. Again, I'm no expert at painting. I just do what I sort of enjoy and how it looks sort of good to me. So yeah, obviously you guys, if you want to really get better at painting, there's obviously a lot better people out there to watch than myself. I am still learning when it comes to painting, as it's only in the last sort of month or so that I've actually sort of been doing more painting, and I've actually started enjoying painting, which is the main thing about this hobby, is to obviously do and enjoy what it is you're doing. So yeah, obviously you get old army painters using all their paints from some of the previous sets they sent me, as well as some of the paints that come in the this big sort of box set even. And yeah, using me Artiscapade brushes. Again, links to those in the description. So yeah guys, everything I use, there's links down below. Some of them I'm affiliated with, some that I'm not. But yeah, by all means, please go check them all out, because it does help my channel no end by you guys clicking on the links and sort of buying stuff from them, whether I'm affiliated or not. Obviously, it just looks good for me and for them and for you by sort of helping each other out and using the stuff that I kind of use. So yeah, I'm waffling now, so I'm going to get back to the video. So I'm now obviously doing the wash, which again, I love washes, just because again, these really do add something special to anything you've painted. So a lot of the stuff that I paint in sort of like nice sort of general block colours, and then using a whole variety of washes. I think the wash I'm using here is like a brown wash, or I think it's a dark tone actually. So a dark tone sort of wash over this, just again to add in some sort of more detail, texture, shadows, all that kind of good stuff. Well, I'll do go over the tree again later with another sort of like highlighting colour, just to obviously give it a bit more of an effect. So yeah, so now onto the grass and the flocking. I'm not doing any static flocking here, mainly because I find the static flocking looks great, but doesn't really look like a ton better than sort of normal flocking. So here I've got a variety of grasses. I think there's 3 different grasses in here, as well as some sort of like earthy terrain stuff. Again, this is all from Army Painter. I actually bought this stuff prior to them sending me anything, just because I do like their stuff basically. So yeah, I'm just sort of like sprinkling it on. Yeah, that's all I can really say really. I'm just sprinkling it on. But again, I think having the different sort of greens in there just make it look a bit sort of more realistic. There are also little stones in there, as well as I think it's like bits of cork that have been obviously chopped up really finely to look like little stones. So yeah, all looks good. And again, Army Painter, little tufts of sort of grass, moss, all kinds of bits and pieces. And these I'm just going to go around putting in any like little nooks and crannies amongst the rocks and the stone that's been sort of cut. Again, just these little things just make something really pop and look a bit more sort of realistic. So nice and simple, nice and cheap, but certainly get the job done. And there we go, my first sort of ever terrain diorama sort of set that I built for D&D, which I'm really pleased with. I'm really pleased with how it's all come out. And yeah, this is going to be the start of a sort of one-shot, maybe a campaign that I'm going to be doing. And as the title says, this is called The Gateway to the Tomb of Horrors. So many are going to enter, but only few will return. So yeah, Really pleased. Obviously, love these little figures as well from the Artisan Guild. I hope to be printing out loads more from them. And obviously, these heroes need enemies. And yeah, there's obviously loads of them to be able to find. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed that and you found that informative. If you want to help out the channel, become a patron like these guys here. There's a link obviously coming up in a second. There's a link down in the description on how to become a patron. And I say, support the channel. And obviously thank you to all these sponsors down here who, again, help support the channel. If you are new here and you like what I do, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell as I do produce videos every week. And if you have any questions about sprues, sprue goo, or basically anything I make on this channel, leave them down below, as I like to know what you think about what I make and what I do. And say any questions at all, I will certainly answer them. Even if you just want to say hi, put hi in the chat and I'll say hi back. There's a couple more videos on my channel, give these a little click, see more of what I do. Don't forget, subscribe here, Patreon there. Okay guys, that's it. Bye for now.